My name is Terry Rudd. I teach at Mount San Antonio College, and oftentimes at the beginning of my medical terminology class, and also for some of the high school students, I like to go over the various careers and health career programs, to see if perhaps you're going in the right direction, or if there's some other things you hadn't thought about. And if nothing else, it's going to help you understand who else is in the hospital besides you, or in the medical field from that perspective. Now, when I talk about the education and I talk about the pay and things along that line, it's just off the top of my head. So I'm generally right, but maybe not exactly right. And things may ever so slightly change. Now, I have a little bit of a bias, and I personally believe that you shouldn't be spending the cost of a house for your education. I believe you can get good education in the community colleges and the Cal States. Remember that anytime you get a student loan, that student loan is never forgivable, except by death. It's not forgivable by bankruptcy, and it will haunt you the rest of your life. I do believe some programs are worth paying for that student loan. Other programs, just be careful that you're not putting out $200,000 for something that's going to pay you minimum wage. Of course, I'm exaggerating. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about another bias I have. If you want to make really good money, you have to give or prescribe drugs. If you want to make good money in the medical field, you have to be in a career where you give or prescribe drugs. And I just realized I forgot a string of data, which I'll put at the end. It's because you give or prescribe drugs that you have the license to do that gives you the big bucks. Because with Obamacare and people needing health care, they need people who can prescribe or give drugs. Does that make sense? So if you want to go the nursing route, there's a couple of ways to go. You can start with a certified nursing assistant program. Some people do the CNA in order to get an idea how to do basic care work with patients. And it's anywhere from 12 weeks to a semester program, depending on where you go. You actually go in, take care of persons, you do their beds, their baths, you help them with feeding and things that we call activities of daily living. You're rarely ever going to get much more than minimum wage, and you're going to work harder than anybody else in the medical field, just so you know. But it is an intro. Going along the nursing realm, there's LVN or Psych Tech. Now, Psych Tech is just a California thing. In fact, I teach in the Psych Tech program here. I've been teaching in it for almost 30 years. LVN and Psych Tech, you do give medications, and it takes anywhere from 1 year to 18 months, depending on where you go. And you can generally walk into a program without any prerequisites. Some schools require prerequisites, but you can generally walk in with what I call warm body, alive, with a high school diploma or equivalent. And in 18 months or a year, you can be eligible to sit for a state board exam. And as an LVN or Psych Tech, you do assessments, you do head-to-toe assessments, you administer medications. The LVN does very much nursing care. The Psych Tech has a nursing model, but you take care of the mentally ill or the developmentally disabled. Both of them pay around $15 plus. Psych Techs pay more than LVNs in California, especially in the prisons and the state facilities. Because Psych Techs can also run groups and do some of that other stuff. But it is purely just a California thing. If you're ever going to move out of California, I suggest you don't do the Psych Tech. Okay, maybe go the LVN. Now, RN, if I work in a small community hospital, that small community hospital might have about 500 employees, and probably 300 are nurses. You see where I'm going volume-wise? Now, nurses will end up earning a lot of money because a lot of times you're working 12-hour shifts, which is 3 days a week, and I hardly know a nurse that just works one job. And then I hardly know a nurse that isn't broke because they spend everything they make because they can always work another shift. as far as that goes. Now, there's a lot of routes. For RN and for physician assistant, I have an arrow drawn there. You have approximately 2 years of prerequisites, and you need to do well in your sciences. You need to get A's or B's in your sciences. And actually, I recommend that you take your anatomy standalone. It's probably one of the hardest classes you're going to take. Some of you have taken it, right? One of the hardest classes you're going to take. But you have to do well in your sciences, A's or B's. Now, they take similar prereqs, about 2 years. And with physician assistant, I'll get into that in a minute, but generally you need your bachelor's degree. Not absolutely, but generally. But let's go back to nursing. So once you do those prereqs, and they need to be within 5 years, you can go into an associate degree nursing program, and it'll be 2 more years. Or you can go directly into a Bachelor of Science in Nursing, and that's 3 more years on top of the prereqs. These days, because especially in California, we have so many RNs, it's recommended you go directly for the bachelor's. Hospitals now are hiring sometimes just baccalaureate prepared nurses because they can require that, because there's so many applying. So I personally don't necessarily recommend you do the associate first. In this situation, if you were going to go for the BS, you could still do your prereqs here, go directly into baccalaureate program at any of the Cal States, and then it's 3 more years. Or if you have a bachelor's in anything, basket weaving, you still do the prereqs, you with me? And then you can go into an entry-level master's. And with an entry-level master's, you have your bachelor's in anything, plus your prereqs within 5 years. And you will get your RN. Interestingly enough, the RN itself, the first RN is not tied to a degree. You're just eligible essentially to take your state board exam. And then you stay a little longer and get your master's in nursing. So you will end up with your RN and your MSN, and it's 3 years total after the bachelor's. If you're going to get your bachelor's in nursing and then get a master's, it's another 2 years, okay? Now, I went the long route. I got a diploma in nursing, not even an associate. I went to LA County. And then I had to go back a year for my associate, 2 years for my bachelor's, 2 years for my master's. I don't regret my education, but, you know, it's a lot of education. The only thing I would check on the entry-level master's before you consider it is to just make sure it's recognized in other states if you choose to do that. Because that initial RN isn't tied to a degree. It's not even tied to an associate degree. But a lot of people are getting their master's in nursing. If you want to do a nurse practitioner where you actually prescribe meds, they're saying that this is going PhD, doctoral level. It was supposed to happen like now, and it hasn't. But if not, it's a master's level of nursing at this point. And as a nurse practitioner, you pick your specialty, and you actually become a prescriber and a giver of drugs. Now, if you're going the medical route, the physician assistant is a bachelor's degree plus these prereqs, yes? And 2 years. So it's a bachelor's degree and 2 more years. As a physician's assistant, you walk, talk, quack like a doctor. You do everything a doctor does. But you always have to be under the umbrella of a doctor. You can't go out and hang a shingle independently. I have 3 children who said they wouldn't go into the medical career, and they all did. I have an RN, a PA, and a marriage family therapist. The PA absolutely should be a PA. She does everything a doctor does. She works in urgent care. She assesses the patient. She prescribes and goes on to the next patient. My daughter, who's a nurse, is well suited for that. Okay. As a PA, Riverside Community College does have a program you can go into with an associate degree. But most PAs are bachelor's degree, and then you get a master's in PA. Now, with the PA program, as in med school, you want to be volunteering. You want to be sure that you've shadowed a PA, that you understand what a PA does. You want to have something in your application which sets you aside. They don't just want brainiacs, they want people. So you need to have a good story on that application. So you've got to come in as a person with a heart. Do not be a PA if you want to be a doctor. You have to love being a PA. My daughter loves being a PA. But then she came here, got an associate degree, and she went directly into that program at that time 2 years after her prereqs. So she has her bachelor's because she concurrently did a bachelor's with her PA, but now she wants to teach, and they want her to have her master's, and she doesn't have it. So she's going to have to go back and get a master's. Okay. Now, MD or DO, medical doctor, doctor of osteopathic medicine, they're both physicians and surgeons. The DO does a little bit more. The DO does a little bit of manipulation, is a little bit more holistic. Personally, if I'm going to go to an MD or DO, I'm going to a DO. The problem with being a DO is nobody gets who you are. You're always explaining that you are a doctor. But you do exactly the same thing and more. Both of these are 4 years, undergraduate. 4 years undergraduate. Thank you. And both of them go 4 years to med school, and then many more years above that for internship residency, depending on your specialty. But if you want to be a doctor, you guys are young, you're going to live forever, be a doctor. Okay? Do what you love to do. Don't shortchange yourself. Income is depending on what you do. Respiratory rad tech, similar prereqs getting into the program, about 2 years in the program. As a respiratory therapist, you want to be real techie. You know, like if you like putting cars together and things together, that's good, because you'll work a lot with a ventilator. You'll work with people with breathing difficulties. The nice thing about both respiratory and rad tech is you have a lot of autonomy in the hospital. You go all over the hospital. You go in every place in the hospital. Respiratory doesn't have a huge career ladder, but rad tech has a lot of other areas that you can work as a rad tech and specialize. Respiratory, you tend to be a generalist, but you can specialize in neonatal or you can specialize in ICU. But otherwise, other than the manager, not much of a career ladder there. You'll earn probably about $60,000 a year or more. Again, 12-hour shifts, working more than one job if you want to. Emergency services, EMT is about a 12-week program. Most people do it because they want to be other things. And then you go and work for an ambulance company at minimum wage with horrible hours, hoping to get into a paramedic program and go through a firefighter program so that you can be a paramedic firefighter, which is the dream job. Paramedic is about 18 months. EMT, you get minimum wage. Paramedic is about 18 months. If you work for like AMR or something like that, you're going to maybe get $16, $18 an hour. But what you want to be is a paramedic firefighter. So therefore you have to go through a fire academy. You have to be strong. You have to do physical agility testing. And then you go through multiple interviews and applications. And you'll have a stack this big, and that's just the way it goes. Because once you get that job, you're in it for life. My son-in-law is a firefighter paramedic for Rancho, now a captain. He has kept all his rejection letters. And each time he got better, 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 better. And then he got the job of a lifetime. In fact, I get to ride the fire engine on Thursday with my grandkids and look at Christmas lights. Yay! I guess I shouldn't put that in the video, but that's okay. So, but you guys just know that it's a process. you know, you have to end up volunteering for fire departments. There is a website that he used. It's called eatstress.com.